affecting traffic. Uh-oh. Shouldn't be. Hey, how's it going? Well, I'm quite warm. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm not sure why. Yeah. I am frozen, but it's a very excited pose, so... Uh-oh. Oh, okay. That's the plan. Oh, you can't. But we are both on stream. As long as you can hear me, that might be all that matters. Okay. That's right, P-Fred1. I'm no longer frozen. Yes. Well... Yes, I have thought out. The guy.
See if they can hear this.
So, yeah, everybody, if you can hear me, we're working to fix the issue. But in the meantime, just enjoy, especially John's Sigil 2 background. If you haven't beaten that game yet, you are weak, but so am I, because I haven't finished it about cheat codes either. So
they can hear John now. Let me just fix my AirPods to be...
we're hearing you, John. We hear
yes, you
Romero.
are. Can you hear me? No problem?
Can hear you. Everyone's missing out on Tom's song.
I know.
Which is impromptu and improvised.
Let me go to the audio thing again. Let's see. There we go. There we go. There we go. Now you can probably hear Tom, right?
Hello.
Skull Y2K. Tom is always vibing.
Tom is on. I think people can hear Tom, right?
Hello. Hello.
Can people hear Tom?
Can you hear
Tom
me?
is there. There we go.
Yep.
Tom is there.
Yay.
Audible but low. Audible but
low.
It's
yeah.
I'm jamming my mics, like I'm redlining.
Are you?
Oh yeah. It says mic aux slam.
So we're still doing some troubleshooting.
Can you adjust my
audio? Both of your inputs are at max here for output.
But it is very cool seeing all the excitement. We're at 601 people. Can we get to 666? Let's make a push.
666.
That's the magic number. I have it on good authority that all technical issues will just resolve themselves if we can just.
Oh, I just
hit that.
Hello? Did that fix anything? Hello. Input
that's
volume?
What we need the stream to tell us if you're loud enough.
Is this better? Stream?
If you go to your, have you gone to your sound settings, to your input?
I'm in sound settings. Input volume is now near max. Hello.
Silver Smooth says he can hear Tom.
Hello.
But it's low.
Well, it's all jammed up to the top. That's all I can tell you. I could switch to my.
Okay.
Oh wow!
Switch to my webcams.
But
we're at 646.
It's loud enough. It could be a little louder. Can hear
How about this? How about this?
Yes,
How about
this?
That
was louder.
I can't.
Yes.
There you go. Okay. Yes. It was. I put in the AirPods, but it did not grab the AirPods, so I grabbed the. Okay.
There we go.
Alrighty.
There it is.
We made. Oh my gosh! Now it's jamming. Oh, sorry.
All right.
Calm it down now that it's fixed.
Excellent, everybody. Okay, sorry for that 8 minutes of fun.
We are computer professionals.
Yes. All right. So let's start the stream. I first want to congratulate id Software on 33 years in business. Thank you for keeping the spirit alive, keeping this company alive, and making really kick-ass games still. And I've taken off January because the launch of Sigil 2 really was busy and continues to be busy. But I'm starting my streaming schedule this month, and I'm working on Hellion, so people are going to start seeing me streaming pretty soon. So I'll be starting on some levels for Doom 2, and it is a full 32 level set.
In 8.5 months, right? That's the.
Yeah. We're gonna get done this year.
Okay.
It took
fair enough, though.
To get 9 levels done for Sigil 2.
Right.
It will be worked on.
Yes.
Yes, it will be worked on. So yes, happy birthday to Software. 33 years is amazing. It's a magic number, 33, for some reason. It's better for us to do a stream than for me just to tweet something, so it's more fun this way. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do, we're going to talk about the beginning of id Software. And to do that, I'm going to read the first 4 short paragraphs from my book in the chapter 9, the area where we kind of begin id Software, and it's called Lightning Strikes is the name of the chapter. Okay, so I was speechless. I know that may be hard to believe. I talk passionately about games to anyone who listens, whether it's about programming techniques, upcoming games and consoles, or the latest game I'm into. Softdisk even had a conversational atmosphere. Still, on September 20th of 1990, I was at a total loss for words. But my silence wasn't the real story. The reason for my silence, that was the real story. In the space of about 1 second, at the age of almost 23, I had glimpsed my future, my colleagues' future, and the future of PC gaming, and that future was phenomenal. Moments before losing my capacity to utter a single word, I had arrived early to an empty Gamer's Edge office to find a 3.5-inch floppy disk. Huh. I kind of just have one of those right here. Yeah, just like that. On my keyboard with a note from Tom. He's right over here. Instructing me to run the program on the disk. I inserted the floppy. And now, David gets to take over.
Continued.
That's right. I feel like I'm setting up the voiceover at the end of a Batman 1966 episode. What happened before the floppy? Will John run it? Tune in right now. Same id time, same id channel. So we're going to work backward a little bit. We're going to talk about what's on that disk, what fiendish design Tom came up with for it, and then we'll talk about its significance, because I think it's usually only talked about its significance in one certain way, but I think there's a lot more to it. So Tom, let's start with you. We're going to set the stage. You two met at Softdisk. How did you come to work there, and what do you remember about the first time you met John?
Okay, coming to work at Softdisk. So I graduated with a degree in computer science systems programming, and I interviewed with IBM and Gould and a bunch of other companies, and I got plant trips and everything. And they said, we like you, we like your resume, we want to hire you, but is this what you really want to do? They all asked that question. And I basically thought, no, this is boring. I want to make games.
What?
So, John is distracted. So I want to make games. So I applied to 50 companies and got rejected because I just, had the Apple II experience. And then a couple months later, I applied to 27 more companies, and one letter came back with this amazing, glowing thing like, you are exactly who we want to hire. Oh my gosh, you have so much experience on the Apple II. Please come down and interview. And came down and interviewed at Softdisk, which was in like offices jammed in an old mechanic's garage. It was like with leaky ceilings, and you parked on top of the thing, and it was basically a parking lot basement is what that was. But I went there, and it was sort of like the McDonald's of gaming. We were making a monthly software collection every month, sort of a magazine on disc. And it was cool because you could read the magazine and then run the thing that they're talking about. So that was cool, and we accepted submissions from other people. And it was sort of like the McDonald's of gaming. So you'd work really hard for no money, but boy, you learned your craft. So it was great, and the people there were fantastic, and it was my first real job out of college, and it was really cool. And occasionally we got to work on games, but sometimes it was like a spreadsheet or a utility or something like that. So it was really cool, and we got to work on games. And then we had a competitor called Uptime. And they, they did really cool games, monthly software collection magazine, this kind of thing. For some reason. Apparently he's offended by the stuff.
They all disappeared, and now they're all back on.
But hopefully he will rejoin us in a moment. Somehow. Oh, a guest has joined.
Oh, I think we're...
Show on stream. Okay. Okay. Anyways, so we looked at the people that submitted to Softdisk, or to Uptime, and it's one really great person that made a lot of really cool games for them, and so we reached out, and that was John Romero. And John would only join if John.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm trying to fix your screens right now.
I think the end of that story, Tom, is that John would only join if we could get these technical issues sorted.
If you could hear me on the
because you guys got disconnected somehow.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No,
so
you got disconnected. You just disappeared.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. On my side, you guys were just like, boop, gone.
You're on the stream twice.
There we go. There's that. Okay, sorry guys. This is really...
Who knows where I got chopped off.
Let me do this.
You never know
okay,
what.
There's David again.
This
is now swapping people and all kinds of stuff. That
hello
there.
Hello. So Brenda can hear me but not see me.
Yeah. I'm trying to fix that.
Here Weird.
Maybe maybe you fell into that lava in the sigil.
I'm a lava hallway.
You should be okay now.
Hello.
Yeah, you're on.
All right.
If you can hear me.
Brenda says doesn't see me.
Right, there's a delay between when you're broadcasting and the stream comes up. And I can tell you when you were actually up there.
All right. Did everyone hear the story that led up to
Tom's story about being at Softdisk?
Yeah, and leading up to Uptime, and that sets up your entry into Softdisk.
And then I'll get back to the night later.
So, geez, when I came to Softdisk, that was basically me coming down with Jay and Lane, and all three of us were interviewing over a weekend, which was really great. We had a really good time, and it was really fun. It was like, hey, let's just move down here. It's nice and warm, because I was in New Hampshire, so it's freezing. So Softdisk basically hired all three of us at the same time. We drove down from New Hampshire all the way down to Louisiana with a big old stop at Disney World, and spent some time at Disney World, then came over, went to Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and then we came up to Softdisk. And I started to work in what's called the Special Projects division that I just created, and this was basically to make commercial games. And the first thing I needed to do was learn how to program on the PC, because I had never coded on a PC, just the Apple II and the Commodore 64. So I needed to learn that as fast as possible. So I in Special Projects, I started learning the PC, and the games and things I was making, I was just giving to Big Blue Disk, which was the PC disk there, Softdisk. And so I was doing that for probably just a couple months. And then they basically, because I was getting stuff done pretty quickly, they basically said, forget Special Projects, we need you on Big Blue Disk. So I was added to the Big Blue Disk staff, and then I started to make stuff every single month. And it was either a game or it was a utility. And all of it was geared towards me learning how to use a PC really well. So I made a lot of tools, a lot of TSRs, TSRs, terminate and stay residence. They're like programs that just run and sit in the computer memory and come up. This is like because of old times. Right now, everything is a TSR. So anyway, I wrote a bunch of those utilities and games, and everything was 1 month, and then had to basically, get launched at the end of the month. After doing that for a year, I told Al, I need to make games. I'm making games, but they're just 1 month, and it's games I've already designed before on the Apple II, and this is just me implementing on the PC, so it's boring. I need to make actual games. I'm probably going to go somewhere like LucasArts. I really want to go somewhere where I can start making stuff. And he said, no, don't leave. Please stay. So we'll start a game disk so you can make games. And I'm like, I need 2 months, not 1 month. and I need a team of people, not just me by myself. So, not just me by myself, because if I have a team plus 2 months, it's going to be insane. It's like 2 people is like, that's 4 games, but in one. So anyway, it was, they just said, yes. So that's what I did. I basically, it took them a few months to get the department set up. like in their system for marketing and business and like setting up a whole new SKU. So while they're doing that, I needed to find a programmer. And because I made games all the time, even when I went home, I would go home and I would make games. I would sell them to Softdisk. And on one of the discs, my game Substalker was on it, and there was another game on it called Tennis by John Carmack. And I saw, yeah, it was. I mean, for tennis, right? Tennis is boring, except that the way that John programmed it was really good, and you could tell that just from looking at it. And I said, hey, how about this guy John Carmack? Can we hire him? And they said, yeah, that's not going to happen. We already tried twice to hire him.
Yeah.
So I just said, tell him it's games all the time and come down for an interview. And I think that I could convince him. So they did that. He decided to come down for an interview. And when he came in, it was amazing. It was like the best interview ever. It was super fun. Lane came, so we could just talk assembly the whole time. It was really, really great. So John, like, yes, I totally want to work here. And then he moved over, and there wasn't anything for him to do yet because the department did not have an office yet. I was still waiting to get an office. So I just told John, here's a computer, just make a game. When you're done with the game, hopefully this thing will start, and then we'll be on our way and we'll be in a new office. So he made a game on the Apple II called Catacomb, and so it was a great little game. And I think he just gave it to when he was finished, he gave it to the Softdisk, I think to Tom probably, and so they could put it on the disk that month. And luckily, we were basically ready to start the department. So we got an empty office, and we got new computers, and we got these little desks, and there's only a 10 by 10 room. It was really small, but that's big enough for us. I didn't want to do anything with getting like dealing with across the street business stuff, so I brought Lane in from the Apple II department, or special projects or whatever, brought him over to be the editor, so he could be deal with across the street, and then I could just code all day long, and then John could code all day long. But I also needed an artist, so I basically found Adrian Carmack in the art room next door. After a month or so, he came over, and then we could start making a game. But we actually had to make a demo disc first. So we spent a month. We made 2 games in a month. We made a demo disc, and then we could start working on a game together finally for the first time ever. And that was a game called Slordax on September 1st. So it's only 3 weeks before, basically September 20th. And that game, I gave John this book called Power Graphics Programming that explained everything technical about the EGA graphics controller and VGA and everything. It was written by Michael Abrash. It was like the book to give John all the technical information because he said that that's what he was interested in. So he took it and he decided that he was going to make a vertical scrolling game like 1985 Xevious. And so I was like, okay, cool, that'll be great. And I started working on a level editor to make the levels for it. And then I think it was Adrian who started working on the graphics for Slordax.
No, that was mine. I remember
Okay.
drawing the bad bullet. See, that was the difference between the early Gamer's Edge games and the later Gamer's Edge games is I did art for Slordax and the bullets and stuff like that, and the star fields and stuff like that, and even up into id as Adrian got incorporated, it was like, oh, that's real art now. It's not just like little tiny drawings of stuff.
Yeah. So Tom did all the art for all 3 Commander Keen games.
Yeah. So first 3, and so that's from my perspective. I'm sitting there. It's like, hey, we're making a game a month disc or something like that, or game every 2 months disc. It's like, man, I don't want to make games. So I would sneak into their office late at night and just like dudes, I wanted, make games with you guys. What do you need doing? It's like, oh, when you got some, some levels to make, or you can draw the
Do
spaceships
some
in this game.
graphics
It's
or
like,
levels or whatever.
I'm doing it. It's just like, I want to make games, all the time. And so we got along great, and we all bonded over the Apple II, and it was just fantastic. Like, we really worked well together, and like had all the same interests, and so on. So I mean, that was fantastic working on early games like that.
Yeah.
And then
Totally.
then historian John Romero.
Yeah. So we were, basically when John decided to make a vertically scrolling game, he was using these hardware registers that made the screen scroll extremely smoothly, very smoothly. And that was cool, and it was a great graphics trick. And I told him, wow, that's pretty great, but man, if you can scroll horizontally, that's totally different. Like, vertical is okay, but horizontally, that's really hard. But that's really the most important way to scroll. But we're not doing that in this game, so never mind. So forget it. So
it's a pipe dream.
Yeah, it'll never happen. So anyway, it was funny because when I said that, John decided that he was also going to start researching the horizontal scrolling register. and what happened was, one day, I just basically go home at 10 o'clock at night, usual. And then Tom comes in, into the room.
Okay, all right. So I go over there because we work late at night, because I would basically, the work day would end, and then I would go in and do levels or graphics or whatever like that, and I just walk in, and on Carmack screen it's like, hey, I got something going, and it's just a bunch of brick tiles scrolling around like this, with Romero's Dangerous Dave character just going like this, and it was like, oh my god, it's smooth, like, it's amazing, like you could actually, the potential is there. And then we had a Nintendo Entertainment System in the corner, and I just thought, like, hey, now my family always thinks of what would be funny. So I looked over at that and like, what would be funny? If we did the first level of Super Mario 3 tonight. And it was like, yeah, let's do it. And he was all into it. So he was sitting there coding it so you could actually jump on tiles and says, okay, put a flag, and said 1 means solid. Okay, so I was furiously copying and pausing Super Mario 3, the whole level, copying all the bricks in my art style, and setting the data values on it and just blasting that out. It's like, okay, here's the level, and we're doing sneaker net back and forth. It's like, okay, here's the level, and then try to do that, and here, it's a rough one, so you can jump around on, and like I say, okay, draw some coins. I'll draw some coins. Okay, so we're just doing every single thing in the first level, and it was like super fun. It's kind of like that, just joy of creation without thinking about it. That I recommend to people making games, have that sense of timeless play, like that you could just like have fun with what you're doing. And so we just like did that, and he got the thing gliding, and it's like, okay, and it'll end the level and stuff like that. And I'll go on the second level. And I just made a crappy second level, just to go to. And then like, okay, we need a title screen. Okay, so it's like, well, we're gonna get sued if we actually publish this. So I just made a title screen, Dangerous Dave and copyright infringement, and I had Dangerous Dave in one side and a Nintendo lawyer going like, no, you will be sued to death, and so yeah, and he stuck that in, and it was like, oh, what a funny joke. And so I was like, well, we should leave it for Romero, because it was like 3 a.m. or something, and it's like, we're gonna crash and get in late, so let's just leave it for him. So I wrote on a post-it note, stuck it on the disk, and put it on his desk. And then I went to sleep and came in late. But in the meantime,
John, just for a little bit of context here, who is Dangerous Dave? What's his significance here?
Dangerous Dave is a little character that I made in 1988. I made a game called Dangerous Dave in the deserted pirate's hideout on the Apple II in 1988, and it was published through Uptime. It was actually on the last issue of Uptime, a Disc 2 magazine that was in competition with Softdisk. So Softdisk won, or Uptime won, or yeah, Softdisk won. Uptime went down, and Softdisk actually bought Uptime's assets. Anyway, Uptime was a disc monthly thing. People would subscribe and they would get a disc in the mail every month, and they would hope that things that are on it are good.
Yeah,
that's what people did back then. It's almost as bad as typing in games from a newspaper article or from a magazine article. But Dangerous Dave is a character that I wanted to make like an Apple II Mario kind of character, to have like a 10-level Mario game. So I did that. But during that 1 month that John and I made a game for the demo disc, I remade Dangerous Dave on the PC. And when I did that, I redrew all the graphics in CGA, EGA, and VGA modes. So that's 4-color, 16-color, 256-color. So I had a 16-color version of Dave, and that is what John used because it was animated. I already had an animation of running and jumping and everything. There's no reason for him to do it any other, to use anything else, because guess what? Back then, it was a lot of work to do any kind of animation. So if he had an animation, it's like, oh man, how can we use this thing? It's very difficult. So anyway, he had my animation from Dangerous Dave and decided to use it as the character in this little demo. So that's what he did.
So that means not only did Carmack and Tom copyright infringe on Nintendo, but Tom stole Dangerous Dave, but it was all in good faith.
Yeah.
Sue me, buddy.
So John, that disc that Tom left on your keyboard, you booted this up and it blew your mind. Before you talk about that, I want to get into why, because I feel like a lot of people in the chat who grew up playing the NES especially might think, oh, smooth scrolling like Mario, that's no big deal, right? Well, why was this a big deal for the PC?
Well, the funny thing is, people that are probably watching this or in chat don't even understand that games didn't scroll mostly on the PC back then. Games were just single screen, like chess, where you're just looking at the screen and the things move around on the screen, but the screen doesn't move, because on the PC, moving the screen smoothly was not something that happened. The memory architecture of the PC meant that when you in the graphic mode, the 16-color mode was the dominant mode at that time. It was the best one, really. VGA was almost like too futuristic. So 16-color mode was the one that everybody really used, and every byte in memory represented 8 pixels on the screen. So if you were going to move the screen left or right, you would move a whole byte. You would just copy the byte over, which meant the screen scrolled by 8 pixels every time, which was very chunky. Yeah, it's like block, 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 block.
Like grid paper, just
yeah, horrible. It was very slow. It was slow, and it looked really bad. There was a really popular freeware game out at the time called Captain Comic that was like the best game, I think, and it was free. It was the best game that you could play back then, and the screen scrolled chunkily, just like pretty much every game that was trying to scroll on the PC. And anything that would scroll smoothly, which never existed on the PC. Like the PC was released in August of 1981, and the PC had never seen its screen smoothly scroll by even a pixel or sub-pixel. So John figured that out, and when I ran the Dave 2 on the little disc and saw the screen scroll, at first I saw the funny title that Tom made, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what this is going to be. Obviously, they're using Dangerous Dave, but like, what's going on? And because the title didn't show the world, right? It just showed, yeah.
So we have a special announcement brewing.
Okay. Yeah. Let me see if I can do this. All right. So, sorry.
Well, while you do that, John, if you mind, do you mind if I throw a question to Tom?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Tom, obviously what happened next we'll get into, but John sees this and he realizes, okay, this is breakthrough technology. Softdisk doesn't get it. We need to leave and start our own company. But when you and Carmack were making this, were you even thinking about that, or was this just
no? That's what John Romero's like great talent is like seeing the potential of something. We thought it was a lark, and Carmack thought it was like, I finally did it. That's pretty cool. And we can talk about that in a bit. But it was more just ha 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 ha. This will be something cool, sort of, for a game disc or something, but not the potential. But it was funny to come in like all tired and stuff at like 10 or 11, and then John just grabs us, and like pulls us in the office, slams the door, and we're so out of here. It's like boom, it's the seismic explosion. Yeah. And just like, yeah, because like I thought it was really amazing, but didn't dream that big that you could make real games for a living. It was impossible to do.
I think also you did not know the PC market, and like if we saw a game scrolling on the Commodore 64, that was normal. Like we wouldn't be blown away by that. That's kind of a normal thing. But seeing a game scrolling, if it scrolled that way on the Apple II, that would have been nuts too. Like that's smooth.
Yeah.
So if you don't know the market.
Well, I did. We all played like after Carmack and then later Gods and stuff like that, but it was always very slow.
Yeah.
Data moving and stuff like very cool, but it's just like it would have been like where our whole world blow up if we we got to make games right now, like don't mess with that or something. That was more of that.
Yeah.
That'd be too big a dream.
To make games all day long? How can you do that?
What the hell?
And this was 1990. This is a long time ago.
So, John, put us in your shoes. You are reacting to this, but no one else is getting it. What was that kind of like for you?
Well, when I saw first of all, when I saw this, as soon as I saw the screen scroll smoothly, I was done. Like I couldn't even think anymore. It was like, oh my God, this doesn't exist. Like I've played at this point, I played so many PC games, even just being there for a year, because my research was the whole game market on the PC. So I played everything. I played so many static screen games. Oh, just a second. I think I can get. Yeah, here we go. All right. Yeah, here we go. Let's see if we can hear you. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we hear you. John Carmack, we said your name 3 times, so that must be what.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good. So you know what's going on. We're actually talking about right now, like, why it was so insane. Oh, you can't hear him? Okay, let me see if I can get
he's going to add another audio source. We can hear you, but the stream can't.
All right. Let me see. Yeah, it'll be an easy thing, I think. Let me just get you. Yeah, I'm just having to get. Yeah, here we go. There we go.
Try it. Say something.
Test.
Yep.
Got it.
I think
Chat
so.
confirm.
Chat.
Can you hear him?
Launch.
Can you hear
him?
Yeah,
I can hear him.
You can hear him, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's
okay. Great.
Yeah.
And chat says okay.
Yes,
Chat
everyone can hear him.
Okay.
Well, this is a question that I had for Romero and Tom, but I think it might be appropriate to start with you, John. What I've always found is that disc, Dangerous Dave and Copyright Infringement, am I completely crazy to think that architecture, maybe not fully intact, but could we consider that one of the earliest, if not the first, game engines? I mean, if you carry that to Commander Keen.
In a certain way, yeah, because we were so forced by this kind of crushing load of doing games every month or two, or multiple games in that time frame, that we had to reuse so much of what we did. The same tools, much of the same code. It wasn't organized really like an engine, but we copied over a lot of code and modified it. And we did start sort of naming them more like functional subsystems that were copied over almost directly into the later versions, but we never got to the point of actually making libraries. which was kind of interesting because I know Lane and John Romero used some explicit libraries for like their ideas from the deep code that was set up for across multiple projects. But, I wasn't, honestly, I wasn't really that mature of a programmer at the time in terms of setting up sort of classic abstractions and different things. And I was learning as I went.
Romero, Tom, is there anything you want to add to that about kind of how you carry that forward into Commander Keen? Because this was the foundation of id Software.
Yeah, first off, just want to say, hey, John Carmack, co-founder of id Software. If anyone, for some reason, did not know that. Okay. Now, to the question. Go ahead, John, or I, whatever.
Yeah, Romero, you want to take from there?
Yeah, the code was basically the beginning of Commander Keen. It was a horizontally scrolling piece of code that was made just for that demo. And when so much stuff happened right then, it was so crazy because of Scott Miller trying to get in touch with me and this cool demo, and because the demo really, when I ran that demo, I couldn't work for 3 hours because nothing like that existed, and I knew that like this would change everything, and we needed to figure out what to do with it because we could do something amazing with it. Nobody has seen this kind of scrolling on a PC. I played, it doesn't matter what the game was back then. It was static. Static screen, Life and Death, Ancient Art of War, you name it. All these games were such static screen games. Nothing moved, and if it did move, it moved by chunks. So nothing was like like a Commodore 64 or an Atari 800 or an NES or anything. And it was funny because we had the NES in the corner of our room, which is almost like we really hope to be as good as these games over here.
So we could finally get on that somehow. Make a platforming game
to do that. And so we when he did the demo, when I ran the demo and I couldn't work. I was just like, this is unbelievable. I took it to two people in the PC in the Big Blue Disc room, and I showed it to Mike Maynard and Jim Rowe, and basically showed it to them, and they're just like, oh, that looks neat. That's kind of neat. It's like, it's more than neat. Holy shit! And
that doesn't work in CGA.
I was just like, I'm not saying shit to anybody else. Like, there's no. That's enough people that know. No one else needs to know about this. And so when John came in and Tom came in, I think came in the room and I was just like, guys, you have no idea. Like, this is unbelievable. This has changed everything. Like, we need to get out of here.
Wasn't Jay Wilbur in really early on the Cabal there? I thought you brought him in the first day.
What happened was Jay was walking down the hall and they said, dude, get in here. And I closed the door and I'm just like, you have no idea. Look at this demo. This does not exist on the PC. Holy shit. And Jay was at that time, I think, the head of the Apple II department, so he wasn't a PC person either. So he didn't understand the impact of it. But I just said, no, seriously, we're going to leave. Like, this is unbelievable. And he's like, ooh, leave. Let's close the door if you're talking that way. And so we were all in the room, and I was just like, nothing like this exists. We need to start a company to do something with this. But we need to make a really good demo of something. Like, this is really cool. And then we're like, why not make actual Super Mario 3? Like, make all the characters in it and send it to Nintendo. And if Nintendo wants us to make Super Mario 3 for them, that's insane. That would be unbelievable on the PC. So that's what we decided to do. Jay knew a guy?
Didn't Jay know somebody at
Jay
Nintendo?
He knew where we could send it to, right? He knew like the place where we could send it to, where Howard Lincoln was heading up NOA in Seattle, I think it was. Yeah. So he knew who he could send it to. So we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And so we did that. We did it after work, meaning when it was 6 o'clock, we start working on the Mario 3 demo, and we took the computers home at night, on the weekends, basically on Friday, to just, we only had to do it for 2 weekends because it only took us, basically those 2 weekends in the week in between to do this whole demo. But when we were done, we had a really great Super Mario 3 copy of the world, title screen, world map, and level, and going in and out of all those, moving around on the world map and everything. And
so refresh my memories. So the very first demo, the first day demo, it just had a static world, right? You could run and jump and get through there, but nothing animated, nothing worked, and it was only after all of the hacking to get the full demo that it was kind of Mario 3 that we sent to Nintendo.
Yeah. The demo itself was the screen scrolling the world super smoothly, and you could jump around the same level and get to the exit, but there was no enemies. There was nothing animating in there. It was just jumping around, right? Just getting through.
And by the time we were done, we had the animating blocks, the bonking your head on things, and
coins, and animating star and mushrooms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the second level just said, like it? With a question.
Yeah, that's right, it did.
Yeah. How would they not do it? And apparently it got up to the head table. Head table of Nintendo.
It did. It got to Japan where they had to make a bigger call because it was.
Do we want to be in the PC market?
Yeah. Do we want to do this? And they basically decided no because we control the hardware. We need our IP needs to be on our hardware. And the funny thing is that at that same time, Scott Miller was trying to contact me. And
it is interesting how consistent Nintendo has been over decades and decades. And, their strategy has clearly played out well for them. Every decade, they try to branch out one little bit into some other platform, and they keep coming back to, owning their own platform. And it's interesting to see something in the technology world kind of stay that much of a constant for that many decades.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's pretty great. It's worked for them. So why, things change, but it's still doing really well for them. Their hardware is, it's like I'm buying a Nintendo machine, and Nintendo's great for kids, and I'm going to get this for my kids. But yeah, so they, at the same time, Scott Miller was trying to get in touch with me, and Scott Miller, we basically got in touch. I'm not even going to go into that whole story.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that John was so happy. He had all these fan mail all over the wall, and then one day noticed they had the same address, return address.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a fan. He was a fan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was.
He was schizophrenic.
He was 3 fans.
But it was interesting back then, the difference where once we actually did get started and made Keen, the mailbags full of fan mail, that's something that just is very different with gaming today, where gaming today has you've got millions and millions of people, but there's a lot more negativity and other things associated with it, where we had thousands of people getting out pencil and paper and writing letters about the games. And that takes a level of effort that just tossing something on social media doesn't. So, this getting fan mail literally in the mail was actually a thing back then.
It was fantastic. And they would draw little pictures of all the characters. And then one of them said, I had this dream. There's a sort of fire creature that would wander across the... And so we actually thought that was so cool. We put it in another game.
In Keen 4,
in the Berkaloid.
It's a Berkaloid,
so that was, and same with Princess Lindsay, who, she wanted a Princess Lindsay as opposed to a Commander Keen. It's like, sure. It's like a pure joy relationship, which is great.
And that, and the parents were basically writing letters and including their kids' pictures of Keen stuff from and things that they were drawing, because the kids loved it so much. And when they send a letter in the mail, they also sent a handwritten check in the mail to pay for the game. So it's like all this mail going on back then, because like electronic stuff was not really, it was just barely gaining momentum. But it was amazing. And we had like hundreds and hundreds of these letters, just the ones that had the actual pictures and stuff in them, for a long time. but that's like what happened after Keen. But when Scott got in touch with me, he's like, I want you to make a Pyramid of Egypt for shareware. And I'm like, dude, that game is garbage. You got to see this demo we just did. And I sent him the Mario demo, and he was just like, oh my god. He saw the same thing, right? Because he's in that market, so he's just unbelievable. So he was like, whatever you guys want to make, and I will totally publish it. He said he was making a bunch of money like every week, so I was like, okay.
And of course, we totally didn't believe him at the time.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
20,000. He's like, you make 20,000 a month.
Whatever.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's just like, really? Well, then 2,000 down, so we can start working on a game for you. And he's like, all right, done. And so I was like, that's 666 each of us. All right. So he sends it because it really was just us three, me and John and Tom, because Adrian was not like really part of the group. His day job was learning how to actually do graphics at the time. That he was not like part of the team yet. So it was the three of us, and he said he would give us $2,000. I'm like, okay. And he's like, but I want to know what it's about. And so the three of us are in the Gamer's Edge room, and I'm just like, okay, so what kind of game are we going to do? And then John says,
well, I said I can make anything. I can make up anything,
yeah, basically.
And then Carmack just goes, "Oh, the kid that saves the galaxy or something."
The genius that saves the galaxy and his parents don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went off to my room, like spent 15 minutes just writing up exactly what you read in Commander Keen 1, Commander Keen, Defender of Justice, and I came back and I read it in a Walter Winchell voice. And Carmack is brilliant. John, you're brilliant, but he's not very emotional or doesn't get a rise at him very much. And I said, and with an iron hand, and he was like, yay. And it was like, whoa, John. He was like super good. So that was fantastic. And we were off in the running. But we had done the game under sort of another company name or something. So we also needed sort of an entity name.
Yeah.
And so we talked about a bunch of them. And I had read Sigmund Freud's Civilization and Its Discontents in college. And there was the theory of the superego and the ego and the id. And the id sort of responds to the pleasure principle. It goes towards things that life finds pleasurable and gets away from things it doesn't find pleasurable. And that seemed like that's kind of a cool concept. That's what games are. Just like, I want to do the fun stuff. I don't want, it's what I literally did out of college. I want to do the fun stuff, not the boring stuff. And so yeah, it was kind of close to the previous name, so we just kind of rolled with it, and it was mispronounced for the next 33 years.
Yeah, actually, the first demo went out. We had it as IFD, Ideas from the Deep, right? Which was Lane's So Romero, were you partners with Lane on that? How was that tied together?
Yeah, that was Ideas from the Deep. Lane and I started that in 1989. And we published a few games through it. Zaporoids was like our first one. We made a PC, an Apple II, and a 2GS version of that game. And then we made a couple more after that. So we had a little company called IFD, Ideas from the Deep, and we put it on the front of the Super Mario 3 demo. It's right on the front. And then when we started to form this group, we also were playing Dungeons and Dragons a lot in John's world. So John had an incredible D&D campaign that he'd been running for years. Yeah. He'd been running it for years, and our garbage little group that we had was we were joking around like, we're so great, we're in demand. So in demand was our stupid little group motto.
Yeah.
And then
it's sort of justified ID being the spelling, but then it caused everyone to think it is ID.
Yeah.
Under the,
So it's funny that all the friends coming together for that, and then being a problematic name forever.
I know.
Yeah. It's really short though.
In Commander Keen, when you go to there's a little screen in Commander Keen that has like little lights animating around it, and it's like, we're in demand.
It's like.
Yeah, I remember that when we first tried to register an internet address, we were like, can we get ID.com for it? No, that's internal defense. It was already taken. And of course, a few years later, every 2-character name was
gone.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's insane.
Oh, by the way, also in the chat is George Broussard.
Oh,
hey, George.
Hey, George, how's it going?
This is a question for Carmack. We were talking a little bit about this before you joined, and you probably heard and saw some of it, but John Romero had posed this challenge to you. Can you make a horizontal, smooth-scrolling game? And I wondered, what was for you the moment where you had this breakthrough? Like, oh, this is how to do it.
So just making it scroll wasn't that hard. There was a hardware register for it. There was a little bit of tricky stuff dealing with the overscan so that, you didn't see like something moving across it. It kind of gets clipped by the border. But the challenge was there was only enough memory to have 4 screens worth inside the normal display. So some other people did figure out later, and it's still surprising that it wasn't earlier, that you could make a 4-screen game that scrolled around and not really have to do anything very challenging. You just kind of set up a couple registers. But figuring out the different strategies for how you can make an infinite-sized world was where it was a little bit more unconventional. And we actually changed the way that was done between the first and the second Keen trilogy. But overall, looking back, it's just surprising that there weren't more people kind of hacking with that type of stuff, because the type of people that worked on the Commodore 64, the Commodore Amiga, I would have thought, given the same book, that there was 20 people that would have come up with the same technical direction. They just weren't looking at the PC because it was the more expensive, business-focused system. So if you go back and break it all down, it's like using this half-dozen registers that are documented in a few places, but they don't tell you this is what it's actually for. It's like, here's a Pell offset register, and here's a CRTC start register, and here's this undocumented behavior later for how things wrap around. But all of the stuff back then was really fundamentally pretty simple. And this was something that, like in talking about game engines, all the way up through like Wolfenstein, all the code for these files, it just sat in one directory. For Keen, it was like 10 files or something. You get hundreds of files now when you just create a new project in Android Studio or something today. There's literally a couple thousand files in a default install. And all of our games, some of these legendary things up through this time, it was just a little directory full of code. So yeah, it didn't have the engine abstraction. It didn't have any of those things. And it was all really pretty simple. I mean, even when you get to Doom, if you look back at it, it's quaint seeing these little global variables like multiplayer equals 1, rather than being buried under all sorts of these layers of abstraction.
Right. Well, I mean, you say it's simple, but very few programmers at the time would read like hardware manuals like a Bible, like you did, like at every waking moment. To like I learned Apple II assembly from Programming the 6502 by Rodney Sachs, which was a horrible, really hard to understand book. But doing the same thing for the PC is what led to that insight, and I don't think anybody was like so deep into that at the time.
And I actually remember you saying back at the time that when you kind of saw all the stuff in there, you figured you probably could have figured out, if you had looked at that, like how to do the smooth scrolling there. Some of the adaptive tile refresh was a little bit more out of left field, but just that this register does this and these pixels move over here. It's, if you had, if either one of you had sat down and like really looked over those exact same things, you had the background kind of necessary to at least get, half the way there. And it's, again, surprising, given the size of the PC industry and everything, that there weren't more people that actually kind of made that leap.
Yeah, and I think it's because the scrolling on the other systems was actually made a little bit easier. And
it was designed for it. They knew they were making games. Well, the people that built the EGA, they had no thought whatsoever about games. This was just kind of how the hardware sort of worked. Some unsung engineer in one of those companies said, well, we should put a Pell offset register in here so it can offset by a pixel at a time. And, it'd be funny to hear the old history about that, because that didn't need to be there for text mode. It didn't need to be there for, their slow CAD drawing stuff, but somebody somewhere slipped in a little horizontal offset register.
Yep, and the CRTC start, for where vertically in memory you're going to start rendering.
Yeah, that seems like kind of the, all of the different ones would have that, so they could work inside different, they'd make a CRT controller that was going to go in 10 different microcomputers, and so they'd have to have some level of compatibility for that. Although contrasted with like the Apple II, where everything was just burned into a very few logic gates, it was a different thing.
As few as possible.
Also, with the CRTC start, you could do underscan if you needed to on some CRT. That wasn't that was too big or small or whatever. You could go negative or whatever and pull it up.
That was one of the ones that got away. I remember playing with a couple times trying to get overscan going all the way off all the screens. And, we were always worried when you hear that high-pitched whine coming out of the monitor.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, shit, I hope I'm not burning the electronics right now. Because there were registers that at least the lore was that you could actually mess up your multi-sync monitor if you sent the wrong timing to it. So I remember trying to stretch things off the sides and the top and not turning off the CRT gun. So when it's retracing, you'd see a few zippy lines going everywhere. And there's a few things like that I tried, like also DMAing, using the PC DMA controller to update screens that I never really got working right. And sometimes I still wonder, could I go back and fix some of those things now?
Well, the Atari 2600, you could burn out a monitor with that code.
Really?
2600. Yeah.
Well, TVs, there was no way to change the actual displays. I mean, the 2600, you drove everything directly, but I think the NTSC or PAL was pretty much hard-coded into that. And it's funny because I'm actually playing around a lot with 2600 stuff in the AI reinforcement learning work that I'm doing now. So I literally earlier today was checking some scoring thing in Atari 2600 Pong, which is funny how things come around.
Isn't that funny? Like, who would be talking about? Did you get Chasing the Beam? Did you got that book?
Yeah, I did read that. And that was, honestly, I remember being a little disappointed with that book. I was hoping it was going to be a little bit crunchier and the things that I wanted, but just bringing that term out into kind of more common usage was a great thing. And then I got to reuse that all through the VR era about it's like, no, we're not going to page flip. We're going to render the front buffer. And it's not really chasing the beam. We're pacing the beam because we don't want to catch it.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. You got to stay behind it. Over past it.
Yep, that makes sense.
Something we talked about, I'll start with Carmack, but I'd love to hear you all weigh in on this. Something we all talked about during the Doom 30th anniversary stream was how Deathmatch in Doom was kind of the impetus for a lot of players to start learning how to network their computers. And I also find that a lot of what you're talking about, I remember as a kid, if I couldn't get a game to run, I had to know about things like boot disk, config.sys, autoexec.back, DMA. Do you feel like a little bit of that, through that, I learned more about PC and just technology. Do you think a little bit of that is missing in today's gaming, where we do have the convenience of just clicking install on Steam, but we're not really learning anything while we're getting this to work?
There's definitely different things that people learn today. I mean, the whole going through and configuring a system and dealing with firmware updates and then going in and doing some hacking and overclocking and things like that. It's still learning some computer skills, but I do think there is something lost where it's all accidental complexity rather than fundamental complexity, where so much of the things that people have to deal with now are not things about the way the hardware works fundamentally, but it's the way the mountains of system software that have been built up around them work, where you're learning how to hack the way Windows does something, which is not the same as hacking the way the graphics, the CRTC controller does things. So I'm always hesitant to do a kids these days or back in the good old days sort of thing, because technology is just mind-blowingly amazing right now. But there are always some things that are lost as you go forward. And I do spend a non-trivial amount of time thinking about how some of these older things could still be relevant in the modern world, and figuring out there is this wheel of reincarnation where at some point it is time to scrape all that cruft away and go back down to something more fundamental. And you saw it in games also, where things built up, and AAA is this magnificent cathedral. But then you will sometimes get something like Minecraft that comes along, and it's much, much more fundamental, and it winds up being a profoundly good thing. So I do always encourage people to be aware of the history and to look at it with an open mind to see what could be learned about it. But no, I don't think people are missing too much. On net, it's awesome today.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
today it's like, back then it was very hard to make games, but if you could, then you could stand out. And now it's very easy to make games, but it's hard to stand out. You have to do something fundamentally disruptive like Minecraft.
Yeah, back then, because so much focus was on detail-oriented assembly language and registers and all the low-level stuff, a lot of the game design took a backseat to the programming of it. True. And so, if people didn't have teams really back in the 80s, it was like one person doing everything, like the graphics, the sound, the design, the programming, like even the marketing. So it was a lot of work just to make one thing. And so a lot of times the game design was the spark of the idea, but the implementation of it took so much effort that the game design didn't become a really big thing. It really took a lot of effort, like, say, Richard Garriott with Ultima, making something that really was huge and seeing it through and designing the whole thing. But as teams happened, and let's say Tom joining and being a creative force for design, then we could actually focus on the code and not worry about the design, and Tom can worry about the design. And then when you get Adrian and he's doing the art, then everyone's focused on their area, and then you can actually be way more effective making something better because each person is focused on their area. So that's
I do think that there was something really valuable about constraints, and that's something that in game design today there really aren't constraints. You can do anything, and when you don't have constraints, I wound up seeing this in a lot of different areas, but people don't make the best decisions when they're not forced to make hard choices. When everybody can just say, why not both, and throw everything in, that's actually not as good as making a principled, careful decision about a lot of things. And in the old days, there was no choice because you just did not have the opportunity in either hardware resources or manpower to do everything you wanted to do. So you had to prioritize. And that being forced to prioritize is a valuable thing that I do think is a little bit more missing today.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, like both you and I kind of harkened back and checked out Pico 8 because it has severe constraints and it feels like you're making weird choices between map and sprites, and it feels like the old timey decisions you would make, and I can't do that. I can't have a map that big. So how am I going to do that? Maybe I'll write a compression algorithm or blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of interesting trade-offs that today is now just like get a bigger hard drive, that kind of thing.
One of the coolest examples of constraint on the Atari 2600 was Pitfall. You have a whole world. You have a whole world of different screens based on zero data.
It's 1 byte per level, per screen. It's like there's 8 different things that may or may not be there. So you've got 256 screens in the world. And I had a point where I tweeted the code for Pong. I posted it in just like a little block of code. It's just so tiny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're just so crazy. And they did chess on the 2600 and they only have 5 sprites. So they had to do interleaved lines and interrupts and just torturing it to put that many sprites on the screen.
Yeah. So that's actually an interesting thing where there's sometimes when you're just fighting against a constraint that needs to be a little bit more. And sometimes that leads to messy decisions, but there's the whole crafting the entire design inside the factor of 2 there, which is usually where the brilliant design side of things come in, where you say, I'm not going to try to do this because we'll barely be able to do it. And it's going to be kind of not great by the time we get there, but figuring out just the right things that you can actually squeeze in there. And sometimes people make mistakes when they just push too hard to say, I really want this twice 2x of what I've got here. So I'll do the compression, I'll do the paging, and I'll do all of these other things. And in hindsight, 5 years later, when you look at that, you're probably not going to feel super great about it. That's not going to be the reason that Joust or Tempest still feels great today. It's not because it had 16 colors instead of 8.
Yep. Yeah. It's because they focused on the core.
Chat, is Tom still visible? You saw him blink out.
Oh yeah, let me.
Actually, chat may have died.
No.
Let me see. Oh. Let me get Tom back in. Oh, this is the fun Tom thing. Here we go.
All right, you and I are here, John.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so Chad has now noticed he's gone.
Okay. I added David.
Okay.
Romero show on stream. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. At least I can see you all and hear you all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see Tom's frozen though for everybody, right?
I'm frozen.
We got to unthaw Tom. We got to thaw Tom.
We got to thaw Tom out.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Can we hear Tom? No.
Okay.
Let me get Tom's audio through here. Okay.
Okay. All good. But yeah, that is an interesting way to think about the older games, where it is great that a lot of the classic games that we played when we were kids still are good games. But then there are some things that pushed really hard in the wrong direction, and you don't look at them as the classics. But the ones that did exactly the right thing for their resources are the ones that largely still wind up looking good decades later.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not the number of things. It's how good that core loop is and how it feels and what you're doing. And yeah, Defender, Tempest, Joust, all those games are, Pac-Man even, they just have this atomic core. That's great. Pac-Man didn't need 256 screens. It had one, and it was one of the biggest games in the world. So yeah, it really was the just making something that was really, really, felt really good, and it was really fun. And especially, it was unprecedented on the platform. That was what was really different about Commander Keen at the time, and that's what happened after we.
The truth is, it's still a good game. That's what it was. Not just wow, look at this scrolling. It was. It was good in a great many ways. Although when I look back at it, I think our jump mechanic felt a little peculiar, but I
know.
Yeah, but still, it's like the game had when you showed it to people that weren't PC players that didn't know to be amazed about it, it was still a good, successful game.
Yep. Yeah, that was the only thing that I was not a fan of. Was just the was that jump, that delay. We fixed it in Keen 4, but that initial delay was not good. And it was like, oh, let's try and be really actual pogo stick. No, don't try to do the pogo stick exactly right. Let me see if I can get Tom. I don't think we can hear Tom, right? Let me see if I can get Tom back in here.
Wow.
There you go, Tom.
Okay.
Wait. Is it Tom? Tom 2. Tom 1? Tom? Can you hear you?
I can hear Tom.
I know you guys can because you're on the monitor.
Yeah.
Let me set the other Tom audio to. Okay. Yeah, this is just. Sometimes it just.
Tom is not self-muted. It's.
Yeah. All right. Now I gotta get the audio for Tom.
We came up with a cool band name in chat, Johns and Silent Tom. So that's
Johns, 2 Johns. It's funny, we had 2 Johns and 2 Carmacks.
Yeah, weird coincidence.
Yeah.
That was the weirdest.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys can't hear Tom. Okay, let me switch this here to be that audio source. Tom, talk, Tom? No?
His truth was too much. We had to silence him.
Yeah. Okay. Assign to that source. No. Assign to that source. Can you hear Tom? There we go. Is that you, Tom?
Hello.
Yes. Okay.
No. Yes.
Finally.
Okay. So what I'm saying was, in the context of what we made, Dangerous Dave, the one we had before, that was just a little triangle jump. That was just like a set path. And so this was actually an improvement, but just wasn't the final elegance we landed on for Game 4.
Yeah. Well, what Super Mario was the template for that kind of jumping too.
Yeah,
that was the
exactly,
best,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and we had that right in front of us, so it is. Again, these things happen so fast. You know, there was just not cycles of play testing, but we had our jump mechanic. Mario was right there, and it was really better.
Yeah.
But I don't remember why we didn't go and change.
We could have studied that like we studied the book, but
I know. We got the game done so fast, though. I mean,
2.5 months for 3 games.
2.5 months. Yeah. It's so lightning fast.
Crazy. Hey, John, do you have the artifact?
Yeah, there it is.
That is the disc, right? That is it.
Zoom it.
The disc.
Hey.
Great.
That was amazing. John is not the only one with artifacts of id Software.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, Tom carved out time for this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I should have done a post on X about it, but Trista got me a 72-volt electric chainsaw for Christmas to upgrade our little baby.
Nice.
So
you're gonna start making logs now.
100 acres out of land out in space where my mad scientist lab is going to be there eventually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. With a log cabin on it.
Yeah.
Let me get there we go.
Cool.
So we basically recognize this thing. You know, we do the demo. Scott Miller contacts us. We give him the pitch. He totally says that's great. You know, I think we gave him the pitch over the phone, and then we also sent him the letter of the pitch, and we all signed it, and then we started, and he basically sent us $100 in pizza money every Friday, like, hey, would you guys work the weekend? It's like we were living for the weekends. It was like that was when we could work all the hours, and we didn't have to do things during the day. You know, do work during the day. We were making Commander Keen. Basically, 6 p.m. we changed directories at work, and we start working on Keen. And then when Friday comes along, instead of at 6 o'clock changing directories, we just unplug the computers and throw them in the car, and then we take them to the lake house and we are on the D&D table. Yes.
Yeah.
They weren't our computers. Ha.
Another funny hours in recent years, at the big ZeniMax versus Facebook trial, at the end of it, when they're closing down their arguments, they had me on the stand and they're like, did you make a game called Dangerous Dave in copyright infringement? Trying to show my disdain for intellectual property laws and everything. And they didn't have it right. They thought that we had sold it. I'm like, no, it was just a demo. It just went out. It was never sold, all this.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, what's called a joke. I don't know if you understand jokes, but wow.
That's funny. Well, that's lawyers.
Yeah.
So we did. So we make 2.5 months. We made Commander Keen. It was like because we had to make these 3 games. We had to make 3 games because that's how shareware worked. One of them was going to be given away for free. The other 2 people would buy it. And to do that, we had to actually make Commander Keen into an engine type piece of code that would operate on different types of data. So we would have, all the code for. I think we had 3. We did have 3 separate executables because we shipped them on different disks, but it was basically the same code. It just had different actor code in it, for the different characters that were in each of them. But different data, different levels, different graphics. The shared data was really Commander Keen, and probably some of the sky tiles and stuff, but
that thread of being data-driven did carry on through all the later things and led to all the modding and everything. And I think it's fair to trace it back to those early roots.
Yep. Yeah, right there when we decided that we were making a game and we had to make 3 games in 2.5 months. How do we do this? It needs to be data-driven. And that was the decision. And so we did it December 14th. It was uploaded. Commander Keen, Invasion of the Vorticons. The first episode, Marooned on Mars, was uploaded, and the rest is history. And it's funny because a lot of people, even today, were not around when Commander Keen came out, and so they don't know that the rave reviews of Commander Keen were just as ravey as Wolfenstein and Doom. No one had seen this before. It was like crazy. And I have a bunch of, I have some of those reviews from people back then, just like for Velvet, smooth scrolling on the PC. There's nothing like this, and Commander Keen is what you got to get. It was pretty cool.
I remember one of the ones that I was happiest with was just a tiny little blurb from Jerry Purnell in Byte Magazine, just kind of mentioning that, this neat little game. And,
he knows who we are.
Yeah, Jerry Purnelli.
Yeah, I wound up bumping into him a bunch in the space scene around Space Access, a couple decades later, which was fun.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, we immediately start on Keen 4 after that, but 1991 proved to be id Software's insane year of 13 games, and that was three of those games were games that we made outside of the Gamer's Edge stuff, because we did a double res Catacomb 3D, or not 3D but Catacombs. He did a double res version on the Apple II. I did a double res Dangerous Dave, and also Dark Designs 2, I think. At the same time that we're making, all of the Gamer's Edge games, and then halfway through the year we start on our own Commander Keen, 4, 5, and 6. So, and that was
were
the
we
year
a
of
legit company at the start? I don't remember. It's like, did Jay take care of all that for us, or were we skating for a long time? Okay.
We started February 1st officially out of Softdisk. It took until June to become an incorporated company, to be an LLC. So it was June, but Jay did all the paperwork for that. He might have thought that we weren't going to last that long, but yeah, we were.
Yeah, he'll delay it to see if they're really going to do that. But I mean, we got the first check from Commander Keen, and it was like $10,000. Like we can live on that. It was like
we actually
unbelievable.
Could. Yeah,
it just exploded our brains. Yeah, it was like, wow, so much money.
Yeah. It was great, because back then it didn't cost that much to live. Rent was cheap.
Especially in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly.
All of us crammed into one house.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the origin of, id Software. It came from this amazing, probably a 6-hour demo done starting at, 11 p.m., ending at 5 a.m., and putting it on a 3.5-inch floppy. And it took the three of us, all of our different, skills that we have to come up with the idea of doing it, technically being able to do it, and then recognizing that, hey, this actually could be pretty amazing. And that was lucky. It just showed that we were a really great team.
Yeah, and it really was like Romero that drove we're out of here. We're going to make a new company there. Because Tom and I were totally just doing this, like, this is our job. We're going to go make games. It's like, this was.
Isn't this funny? This is a funny joke.
Back here,
yeah.
I'd already founded 3 companies at the time, so it was my 4th company. It was just like, wait, this is the actual company.
Yeah.
One.
Yep.
So. Yeah, it was great. Scott and George were really great to us back then. They were that probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Scott trying to contact me like a madman.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what the alternate history on that would have been. I mean, you might have been able to convince us to go out and shop to a traditional publisher or something, but clearly
they would have got
direction. The best world happened with Scott. Getting us onto the shareware side of things there.
Yeah, and I think his Miller model really made it sell well too. Just like you get the first part of a trilogy, and you get 2 more whole games if you.
And that's
so I think that's brilliant.
Technical about it, but it's all about the mindset and the way the community was at that time. It was one of those things. Nobody else was making money in games in shareware. And Scott just came up with the right little hook on it, and it was working great for him, and it worked phenomenally for us.
Because everything back then was Nagware, really. It was always nagging you and like stopping the game and popping up like, "Hey, buy me for $15," and it was just like no one had come up with this idea of, "Hey, just how about you can have this for free, and when you exit the game, we'll then ask you if you really like it, call this 800 number and give us a credit card over the phone."
Yeah,
which
it's
is
a
what
positive.
happened.
You're getting twice as much.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because that whole sense, because we did have our sell screen was at the end. You quit the game and you presumably just had a great time. And you couldn't do something like that today because you just close the window and it's gone when you're, when you're done with something. But the fact that running it from the command line, like run keys, oh, I had a great time. Quit keying. It's like, oh, what's this right here? I'll read it one of the dozen times that I play the game, and our conversion rates were pretty darn respectable.
Yep, and it had to be a really nice looking, colorful ASCII screen, right? ASCII art screen, because if it was just pure black and white text, people would have just like, they just go look at the disc, whatever. This is boring. But yeah, we had an arted up screen. We even like were joking around sometimes in there with Wolfenstein. It was really funny. Some of the text on the screen, but yeah, it was great. I even have the tool, like I use this Laughing Dog screen editor to make those screens.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and it was fun to edit those and add little funny things just to, like get people like feeling like continue that kind of happy feeling that they just got finished in the game. It's like, oh yeah, we're having fun and we're making fun of this, but hey, why don't you get them? Like it was just a more pleasant way to approach it than just sort of like, and now if you want it, must pay. Like it's not cool. It's not fun. We're about making fun.
I think it was also very viral because people could just give it to their friends because it was free. Like I can download it for free. I'll give it to my friend for free, spread it around, and then people start selling it in stores for us.
No worse friction. Yeah, it could be on every demo disc. It could be given with your PC. It could it just made it easy to spread around, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty great. But yeah, we started the company in February 1st, 1991. It's been going for 33 years. Kevin Cloud just retired in December, and Donna Jackson still works there. So we hired her in January of '94. So she's going to be the longest lived id employee after another year or so.
So all the Keen folks are gone. The Wolfenstein folks are gone, and now.
Yep, all the Quake folks, everybody.
Miss Donna.
Yep, she's still there. I'll probably be seeing her in the summertime. Probably going to go back to the U.S. and go through there. And so the id mom is still there, and she's still loving her job. And still remembers the crazy antics of the early id software.
Semi-dangerous, crazy antics. So.
So anyway, there it is. David, thank you very much for emceeing this thing, and thanks for just all of your incredible work chronicling FPS history and being the foremost FPS historian in the world.
The thing is, all I have to do is let people talk. It's very easy. It's a very easy job. But I actually thought, if you guys don't mind, I'll kick you one last question. Looking back 33 years, and Romero, we'll start with you. What do you think the legacy of id Software is all these years later?
It's funny. At the very beginning of id, I saw us as, on the PC, I saw us as a comparable Serious Software, which had really fast games back then on the Apple II, and it took a lot of work to program those games. It was hard to make things fast on an Apple II. Nasser Jabeli was like this insane programmer who did that, and John is like the next one to do this on the PC and make amazing stuff. And I feel that with the Doom 2016. They spent so long trying to get the essence of that id speed again, and that they found it. They took they took 4 reboots, 7 years, and they made Doom 2016 feel like what Doom would be like if it was made, if it was made for the first time in 2016, like the essence of speed, violence, movement, shooting, all of that stuff was so good. I think a lot of people felt like it wasn't as revolutionary as the original games because no one had seen anything like that. But I think for what the IP was and the kind of gameplay, that they had recaptured that feeling, for today's audience on today's hardware.
It was scary, dark, and fast is what I was waiting for, and there it is. Boom. Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, and I think John really did nail the salient points there. Where I look at it, there was 3D graphics in other things, but it was mostly simulation based. You had like Battlezone and flight simulators, and I don't think it was obvious and inevitable that things would be going for these super fast first person violent gunplay sorts of things that have turned out to have all the legs in the world that are still going strong today. Because, and for a while, I did think that the world was trending more towards third person, that the narrative and cinematic view of what you'd want to do with 3D would become, would overwhelm it, because not everybody wants that fast, violent feel of things. And it has been really heartening to see that the genre seems to have all the legs it needs. It's going to be here forever. FPSs will be here 50 years from now in some form.
Yeah, when
Absolutely.
we originally did Wolfenstein, we were testing it, and we were kind of sitting there going like, no one's made this before. Kind of like, is that okay? We're like asking the gaming gods if that's okay. Like, that's weird. And
really
we didn't realize, like, oh yeah. And what an honor to be in the conflagration of people that started a genre, like who gets to do that, and it was this sort of the magic sort of mixture that made just that come out in the great technology, great tools, great art and design, and it just kind of all snicked together, and it was, though, I think that Carmack is like saying like, oh, anybody could do this, but when you do it twice, it's probably maybe thinking revolutionary type of thing. They're like, maybe
Maybe 4 times,
because like it's seeing exact, like what you said was like seeing exactly where to pull back. Like, don't do full 3D, do 2.5D, and that I figured out a way to do that. You did, and that sort of made the difference of making something stellar as opposed to something incremental, I think. So, I mean, I think like just all of that come together made the magic.
Yeah. And I think that I knew when we were making Wolfenstein and we got that chain gun sound in there, I was on the floor laughing.
That is my favorite sound in all games.
It was so harsh. It was like no game ever. And the blood, and I was just like, oh my God, nobody's played anything like this. This is going to be the best. It was awesome.
And sorry about the dogs.
Yeah.
I had another enemy. I don't know.
I was just retelling that about the Nintendo making us change them to rats, and a couple days ago, actually.
Take out the blood and take out the symbols.
But there was dog food. You can eat their dogs. Dog food.
Yep.
You can eat guts off the ground. Like slurp for 3% or something.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, it was awesome, and
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, it was awesome. And thanks for everybody for watching this. Id Software's 33. It's a third of a century. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. That's never thought that we'd start a company. It was going to be a third of a century old. Yeah. It's still going.
It is older. Yeah, I know, and it is older than we were at the time making it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, I gotta go take my pills.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and it's been a great time. And have fun, everybody. We'll see you next time we celebrate something.
See ya. Yeah, 66.
All right, see ya.
Bye.